Welcome to the course Business Analytics and Text Mining Modeling using Python. So, in previous few lectures we have covered the first module, that is the introductory part of this course. So, we have covered the overview of text mining, and now let us move to the next module. So, that is for Python for analytics. So, we will start with introduction to Python in this particular module. So, this is our first lecture. So, first we will start with some of the installation aspect of this particular platform, Python platform. So, first thing that you need to learn is that we are going to be using the Anaconda distribution for our installation. So, this particular distribution contains both Python and Jupyter. So, both Python and Jupyter are going to be part of this installation process in one go. So, we will not have to separately install these two things, and in one go we will be doing this. So, it includes Python and Jupyter Notebook and also some of the commonly used packages for scientific computing and data science. So, those are also part of this distribution. So, much of what we need is already part of this distribution, and therefore, we typically this has become one of the most popular distribution for data science purposes in the Python platform. If we require any more packages, so we have certain functionality inbuilt into Python which will allow us for installation of additional packages if required. To download this particular package, you will have to go visit this URL, and for Windows PC and laptop we have given this link. For other operating system also, you can easily find the detail in the same link itself. So, this is for the Windows, where you will get the appropriate executable or installation setup there, and you can easily download and install. So, once you are done with your installation, so once installation is complete, so what we will do is we will launch Jupyter Notebook. So, Jupyter Notebook and once you install this whole package, so in the start button you would find in the newly installed item this Jupyter Notebook button also there. So, you can just click that and you will be able to install Jupyter Notebook. So, a console window, first a console window will get opened, which will have all the logs about how Jupyter Notebook setup is started, and then a new browser window, the default browser whatever you might have in your setup in your system, that will get launched, and a new tab in that will be showing the notebook dashboard. So, that will get automatically launched. So, once you click on the Jupyter Notebook in the start button or the search box there in the taskbar, so you will be able to launch Jupyter Notebook. A console window will open, and in your default browser a new tab would be open where you will see the notebook dashboard. So, we will go through this process, but before that let us discuss certain aspects about Jupyter Notebook and Python platform in general. So, let us start with Jupyter Notebook. So, this is about programming in a web browser. So, this when we say programming, it includes both coding and execution. So, typically we are familiar with doing our coding and execution in IDE based IDE based software, or in our bash shell like Unix or so other cells, or IDE based software. So, typically we have been doing our programming for last 2 decades or so in those kind of interfaces, in those kind of environments. However, Jupyter Notebook is something which provides us the coding and execution facility in a web platform interface, where we have the web browser, and there we can code and install, code and execute our code. Another aspect about Jupyter Notebook is that the code, the set of instructions that we write, and the execution output. So, once we execute that code, whatever output is going to be generated, all these things are going to be displayed in line. So, you have a line, you execute that and you will get the output, then you reach to the next line and then you execute that line of code and then you get the output. So, everything is in line in this particular environment. So, as we have discussed that Jupyter Notebook can also be used for other programming language like R and Java. So, if someone is interested in using Jupyter Notebook for their larger programming needs, larger application development, software development needs, then other programming languages have also been integrated. So, typically in Jupyter Notebook different kernel engines are required for doing coding and execution, doing programming in different programming languages. So, that would be required and that would have to be installed. Now, is Jupyter one question that might come into your mind if you are new to Python platform, that what would be the other alternatives to run Python code? Is Jupyter Notebook is the only remaining alternative to run Python code? So, that is not the case. Classically people have been using Python interpreter where a standard arrow based prompt is displayed. Then many developers, many analysts, they prefer to use IPython. So, this IPython is actually an enhanced Python interpreter. So, this is also being used. So, in this interpreter the prompt is like numbered, this kind of a style prompt is there, numbered style prompt is there. So, this is also being used very popularly, and once you go, if you have gone through, once you go through your installation of Anaconda distribution that we refer to, then as part of that installation you will also get an IDE that is a Spider. So, in a Spider you open that IDE, you will get a console which is actually IPython console. So, there also, so you can use that also. So, in the installation that we are asking you to perform, in that itself you will get IPython environment as well, and of course, the Jupyter notebooks. So, this is web based code notebooks, and here also the prompt is quite similar to what is there in IPython. So, actually Jupyter notebooks is part of the IPython project, and therefore, there are similarities in these two platforms. So, whatever you can actually execute in IPython environment, you can also do that in Jupyter notebook, and vice versa. So, that is applicable in most of the scenarios. So, these three options are available: the classical Python interpreter, the standardized Python interpreter, then IPython is there, then Jupyter notebook is there. Two of them are very easily available to you. Just click Spider. If you click in the Spider ID that is provided with the Anaconda distribution that we are talking about, and you have to just click on the Jupyter notebook, that is also part of the installation that we talked about. So, we will get two alternatives. However, for this course we would be using Jupyter notebook. So, let us understand few more features, few more aspects about Jupyter notebook. So, typically Jupyter notebook is used as a local computing environment. So, why we are using these words local computing environment? Because as we discussed that Jupyter notebook is a web platform, we do our coding and execution in a web browser. So, because of that, automatically the client server aspect, those client server terminologies, they can also be used, because as you understand that in a web browser we typically, whatever is displayed in a web browser, whenever we type a URL and whatever is displayed, that is actually downloaded from the server. So, whatever we enter there, that URL will identify the appropriate that will have the appropriate identification to contact the server and download the relevant page. So, the same thing is here. So, the local so the client server kind of terms, and therefore, any other terminology associated with client server environment that is also being used in this context. So, typically when we say typically used as a local computing environment, there can be another alternative where we can remotely access the server part of Jupyter notebook. So, that can be deployed on servers and accessed remotely. So, you can run your server on the same machine. So, when you are done with your installation, so a local host server is going to be running on your machine, and your web browser will actually be taking services from that local server and running in your system, or your Jupyter notebook can be installed in a server and you can start accessing remotely. So, these kind of alternatives are available as far as Jupyter notebook is concerned, and some of the terminology that we typically use in client server computing, that is part of this setup. Now, as far as creating our first file, that is typically referred as a notebook file. When we create this file, this will be a file with extension IPyNB. So, that is IPython notebook. So, this is the simple name of this extension. So, that file is going to be created in your computer system, and as we have talked about, this file is a self contained file format. So, what we mean by that? So, it can contain all kind of content that could be there, that could be required to execute to write the code or execute the code. So, all that is going to be contained in this kind of file format. So, the same thing is mentioned, that contains all of the content including any evaluated code output. So, this is the kind of file that we would be creating. So, next thing is that we will be moving into the Python basics. So, for that we will have to open Jupyter notebook. So, let us start. So, first we will find out from the start button where we would see that our installation is there. In the start button, if we click here, you would see that a Jupyter notebook in recently added items. A Jupyter notebook is very clearly displayed here. So, this is something that we can click and immediately launch the Jupyter notebook. We go down and see where our installation folder is created. So, this is our Anaconda 3, and you can see what other softwares are part of this installation. Anaconda Navigator. So, this will give you a lot, this will give you details about a lot more software related things that are part of Anaconda. So, I have just clicked that. So, once it runs through and launches itself, you will see what are different packages, softwares, alternatives that are available as part of this distribution. So, let us wait, it will launch itself. So, you can see here. So, in this lecture I am going through all this from the next lecture onwards, we will have everything launched before. So, let us go through this. It will take for the first time it will take slightly more time to load. You can see here. So, you get this message. So, you just have to say OK and do not show again. So, you can see what other things are part of this Anaconda Navigator. So, you can see Jupyter Lab, Jupyter Notebook, this Qt console, Spider. So, all these things are part of this. So, in this installation you can access IPython console if you just want this, or you can use the IDE. In the IDE itself also you will have one console, that is actually IPython console. So, that is there. Other things are also there. You can see RStudio is also there, but this has to be installed. So, support for other programming language is also there, and you can see these 4 items, they are already installed with this. So, let us close this. Now, let us take a look at the other installation that we have. So, this is Anaconda prompt, then we have Jupyter notebook, and then we have a Spider. So, anything that you want you can launch from here. So, now we will start with Jupyter notebook, because that is something that is the platform that we will be using in this code. So, let us click this. So, you would see all the logs in this window are being generated. You can see Jupyter notebook is running at HTTP localhost :8888, this is the port. So, you can see when I was talking about the client server environment. So, you can see this is the URL. So, this is being this is being loaded in your browser. So once this is launched, so you can see a browser, your default browser is launched, and this is the dashboard of Jupyter that is there. So once you click, this prompt will open, and this you will get the log how this whole setup is taking place. So from here itself you can see this is a server client setup, and this is local host. So local computing environment is something that we are using. The same thing could have easily been into a actual server and accessing the Jupyter through a remote access. So that kind of setup could also be used. So in this you can see different files and folders are there, which are by default there is a in your computer's users directory, all this is going to be created. So there we are going to click in the appropriate folder for us. So I am created this folder, I have already created this folder, BA and business analytics and text mining modeling using Python. So for coming lectures we will be using this folder. You can create your own. So here you can see here in this place you can see a new button is there, a new Python 3. So if you click on this, you would be creating a Jupyter notebook file. If you want to create a text file or folder or terminal, so to create a folder you can click on this and you can create your own folder just like this one. So this I have already created. So let's click on this. So here you can see I already have two files, this session on Python basics. So this IPython file is already there, and then I have another Python script, testscript.py. So this file is also there. So let's open this file session Python basics, and much of what we have to do will be discussing in this code itself. So once I click this, it will get launched. So this is our notebook file, and for this purpose of discussion that we require in this lecture, that I have already coded into this particular file. If you look at this name of this file, if you want to change it you can click it here, and you can see this window box will open, and you can rename your file. Then you would see that a lot more options: file, edit, view, insert, cell, kernel, widgets, help, all these are available. So we will be learning all these we will be learning all these controls as we go along in this lecture and coming lectures. Similarly there are other options, as you can see. The most important right now is to understand this box. This particular box is where we this is the first line of code for us, where we can use hash to add our comments, and then we can write our lines of codes here. And if we want to execute this, we will have to just click on we have to select this box, which is already selected as you can see in green, and then we will have to click on this run. Or alternatively what can be done is that we can press shift enter, so it will run and the control will shift to the next next line of code. So in this fashion we can we would be executing this code. So if you want more help in terms of understanding keyboard shortcuts, so here in the help section you can see keyboard shortcuts. So here a number of keyboard shortcuts are displayed for the edit mode or the command mode. So there are two types of modes that are available. Command mode, so you will have to press escape to enable this mode, and the default mode is edit mode, so you have to just press enter to enable. So when we click a particular a particular line, so we go into the edit mode. It is equivalent to clicking it is equivalent to pressing enter, and when we press escape then we will go into command mode. So here you can see shift enter that I talked about. This is to run a cell and select below. So that cell, that line, that cell is going to be executed, and then control would be moved to the below cell. So these are this is the window from where you can learn about the different keyboard shortcuts that are available. The first thing that we typically do in any script, any coding script, that we load required library modules. So in this case, as I have discussed, that will be using NumPy, that is for numerical Python. So we use certain abbreviation, there is this norm for using certain abbreviation in Python. So we are loading this import NumPy as NP, and typically it is considered that whatever is required only that should be loaded, and not everything from Python should be loaded into the environment. So as we require certain functionality, we would be loading the appropriate library module. So this is for loading this library. Once this is done, we would like to set up certain parameters to configure our output environment. So one of those things, you can see number of digits here, precision is 4, default is 8. So we would just like to display values up to 4 decimal point. We do not want to look at values up to 8 decimal points. This is more readable, more understandable. So for that purpose, you can have your own setting. Then similarly, to avoid scientific notation printing, this is again to increase the readability of the code and output, because remember, everything is going to be displayed in this same file, our code and output, everything. So this is the function that we would be using. NP is this is the NumPy library dot set underscore print option. So we are setting print option using this function, where first argument precision, the default value is 8, we are specifying as 4, and then suppress is true. This is to suppress the scientific notation printing. And if we just run this or press shift enter, then this is going to be executed. So we will have to trust this. So this option is there because this is being run in a web environment. So trust issues could be there, security aspects are important to keep our systems safe. So we will have to click on this. Once it is tested, then we will be able to run. So once we have done this, it is done. So let us run this part of code, and once this is set, we can test out our first line of Python. So this is first line of Python code is print hello world. So let us run this. You can see hello world was already there, so it got printed again, and you would see that these numbers will keep on changing. So as I execute these lines again and again, so this number is going to be dynamically changing to indicate the sequence of execution. So if I run it again, so this sequence will change, and then if I run this part again, then this number will also change. So it will always indicate the sequence of execution. Now if we look at the variable creation, the way variable creation is done in Python. So one variable and one more variable I am using these variable names purposefully. So we will see that. So let us run this. So once this is done, we can talk about the certain tab completion features. So these could be really useful in the sense when we are dealing with long variable names, function names, and other objects, arguments, file path, then if we can use the tab feature. So we can type one or few characters, let us say ON, and then we type tab. So you can see a drop down box is visible. So here we can select the variable which we want, and it will be selected, and then we can execute, and you can see 24. So in this fashion, tab completion feature is going to be really useful. Another way to use tab completion feature is to access the methods and attributes. So let us first create this variable. So let us run this. Now you can see what I am trying to do is I will use the dot tab. So when we use dot, then after that as per the syntax in Python, we can use different methods and attributes. So for that, first type dot and then tab, and you can see a drop down box is created. So whatever function that I want to use, I can use that here. So for example clear. Now there are a few other things that we can do in Python environment, is that to seek info about an object. So for example v1 is some one variable that we have already created. So we just use this question operator. question mark operator here after V1. It can be used before V1 also, but this is one way to use it, and we just press shift and enter. Then what will happen, this box will open up and pop up, and you can see that some description about this particular variable, this particular object is given, that this is a list and this is the string, length is 3 and other details. So, all those are going to be visible here. Now, we want to write a function, a user defined function here. Def is the keyword that we can use, def f and 3 arguments x, y, z, and this is the value that we would like to return. So, this is just for demonstration that we want to display that I have written this code. So, again let us shift enter, and now this is this has been executed. Now, there is another if we want to display the source code of this function, we can use the name of the function and then use double question mark notation to display this. So, if we again press shift enter, so you would see that the code here source it has been displayed in this pop up window. So, in this fashion we can easily look at the source code of a user defined function. Now, there might be certain situations where we would like to search the namespace. So, for that we might be requiring, we might be using certain keyword, and then we would be using the wildcard character to find out what other options are available in this. So, for this NP is our the imported library NumPy, and then dot, then asterisk wildcard expression character, then load and asterisk. So, this expression asterisk load asterisk, with this we would like to match all the objects that are available in the namespace. For that, to do the match, we are using the question mark operator. So, just press shift enter, and you would see that again a pop up window is opened where we can see np dot underscore loader and np dot load, np dot loads, np dot load txt. So, all these different objects that are available in the namespace, they have been displayed. Similarly, there are certain special commands to execute common tasks and control to control the behavior of the system itself. So, these are not built into Python itself, these are special commands that can be used to manage the whole whole code setup that we are using. So, this is quite these commands are quite similar to what we have in bash what we might be familiar with the bash commands in Unix. So, for example, a package management tool related command pip. So, first we will have to type this exclamation marks and pip and list. So, this will give us all the packages. So, if we press shift and enter, so you can see this asterisk, this is indicating that this particular line of code, this particular cell is executing or waiting to get executed. So, you can see this now the output. So, it took some time because this list is quite long. So, as we have discussed that runtime can be slightly on the higher side in Python. So, you can see this. So, all the packages have been listed. Similarly, there are certain other magic commands, some of them are referred as line magic, which could be really useful. So, first we need to understand what are these magic commands. So, for this we have this command ls magic. So, this has to be first we are supposed to type this percentage operator, and after that percentage character, then ls magic. So, once we run this, you can see all the available line magics. These are the available magic commands and available cell magics. So, these are the available cell magic commands, so that are available. You can also see that one message is displayed here that auto magic is on. So, percentage prefix is not needed for line magics. So, however, for a better practice we might continue to use this percentage sign, because sometimes we might create some variable or some object in our code, and therefore, to avoid that situation percentage using percentage character is better. So, if we run this percentage pwd, then we will get our current working directory details. So, we just press shift enter. So, you can see this has changed. Now, you can see users et cell and the name of the folder. So, this is our directory. Now, if we want to list the files and folders in this directory, we can use percentage ls. So, you will get all the details here. You can see here first file that we have seen IPython session python basics and testscript.py. So, these files are present here. Now, there is another important this magic command is that if we want to run a Python script from Jupyter notebook. So, we can use percentage run command and we can enter the name of the argument here. So, and then we can just press shift enter and it will run, and once it has run it has certain variable that are part of this. So, we can run and find out their values. For example, C is 7.5, result is this value. So, all these are part of this script that we will see just a moment. This is how, if we want to run a code which is outside of this file in some other Python script. So, in this fashion we can run that. So, what was the code in this file? So, that also we can do using percentage load command. So, this percentage load is and we give the argument testscript.py. So, we just run this. So, let us run this and you can see immediately the code of that source code of that file testscript.py is displayed, and you can see C is mentioned 7.5 here. The same was displayed in this output in the 19th cell. You can see these line magics they take arguments in the same line itself. However, cell magics they execute the whatever the whole cell. The line magic they execute the line, cell magic execute the whole cell. So, that is one different. So, next that we want to discuss is integration with data visualization. So, that is something that we will take up in the next lecture. So, at this point we would like to stop. Thank you.